Ah, the wide open view. This is a view from the top of one of the silos at the farm. You cannot make out the city from here, but it is a mere 5 kilometers away. I would argue that a broad perspective is a valuable thing to have. There is a bit of a tooting my own horn in that statement because I think I've got a broad view, but in some ways it isn't bragging because I almost came upon this quite naturally. I mentioned in the previous episodes that I have lived straddling worlds between the rural life of the farm and the urban one of the city. It was natural for me to be able to straddle these two worlds because our farm is so close to a city. A lot of friends and acquaintances that I have known who lived on farms deeper in the country and away from a larger city have a different and more rural-centered perspective that is not as broad as my own. That too is a natural thing. We take on the culture we are immersed in. But if we are regularly exposed to other ways of being, we may find we absorb some of those ways. Take my university education. A lot of farm kids end up going to an agricultural school. There is a good one about 90 minutes drive away from where I grew up, but there was also a fairly large university with diverse options only 10 minutes away in the city, so I chose the institution that was close by. I wanted to pursue some of my broader interests anyway and explore my options, and at the time in my late teens, I was not set on what I wanted to do with my life. I was not necessarily thinking agriculture which was the seeming natural trajectory. I wanted to explore. Part of my educational exploration was aimed at quenching a curiosity thirst for an understanding of other cultures and the root philosophical traditions of other cultures. To that end, I took a course that was an introduction to Middle Eastern and Oriental philosophies. Such a course offered a different perspective from my politics and other philosophy courses that were rooted in classic Western Greco-Roman thought. A particular takeaway for me in that exploration was the idea of holism. Holism as applied to the human being, as applied to the community and social arrangements, and as applied to ecology. This idea of holism has been working its way into much of the West for some time now, and it has progressed quite a bit from where it was 25 years ago when I did my degree. As a concept, it has offered a way to tweak the more materialist and deterministic strains of Western thought. For me, the holism concept had a strong influence. It made sense in a powerful and deeply intuitive way, especially as applied to a human being and to human health, the inseparable body and mind, and even spirit that make us up. You cannot optimize self by dealing with life in a compartmentalized fashion. That has some implications for us in the way we live our lives. It seems to pick up where Socrates trails off regarding the life worth living. That revelation of the power of living holistically led me to, you might guess it, Tai Chi. I suppose I had long been fascinated through my teen years and early 20s with the mythology of Buddhist and Taoist monks, in particular their legendary martial arts skills. Not really a surprise, a lot of young males exhibit such a fascination, perhaps these days more than ever with the popularity of mixed martial art phenomena. For me, though, it was less about the combat skills and more about the internal refinement of self and the optimization of self. Witness that I chose Tai Chi, which is a slow and soft style, as opposed to the hard style hand-to-hand combative forms. There's a great deal of overlap across the various forms of martial art in what the practice has to offer the student of these arts. Yet in some ways, Tai Chi as a form can harken back to the original intent more easily. That is, the holistic optimization of self. It can do this because it doesn't contain some of the ego encumbrances of a lot of the hardstyle forms as they are often practiced these days. Think of the bravado and the grandstanding of the warrior competitor, and you may catch my meaning. That is not to say that there aren't masters or sifus who try to instill deeper values in their students. If you see a humble student, you might suspect the discerning master is behind him or her. The whole point of this argument is to shed light on my motivation and to fill in some details of how I came to be with this added quality of holistic thinking and living, which I feel broadens my perspective even more. You might not have come to know about all of this if not for the life-changing events of the last few years. I might have been content to stay in relative obscurity had not the compelling events transformed me and caused me to burst out of my cocoon of relative safety that I had wrapped around myself. And of course, when I refer to events of the last few years, I am primarily referring to the events of my own life, but not entirely so. The massive changes for human life on planet Earth have also been a preoccupation for some time, but the acceleration of change for us all in our experience of life in the maybe hell emergent reality is a phenomena that oddly coincides with the massive changes in my own life. Dealing with massive change ain't easy, let's be honest. Massive change in my own life sent me off on a spiral into negative emotion and depression. But I live to tell about it. I've come back from the brink and I can now tell you about it. How about the wider society in which we live? Do you think that maybe many have spiraled into a negative? Do you think that the massive changes all around us are causing anxiety and uncertainty and rash decision-making? Look at the choices some people have been making, and I ask you, are we thinking clearly? This is a bit audacious of me, but this is why I'm making a pitch in these posts, for I think the breadth of my perspective of having straddled worlds and the experimented with alternate paradigms of philosophical worldviews, of having been to the edge and back, I think all of this qualifies me to be able to say something of value and to offer something of practical living value to a world of people that find so many have gone to the edge, though they may not know it or presently be able to admit it to themselves that they are there, because they are still in the grip of some kind of pride preventer. In this thinking and writing process, I remembered my reading of Nietzsche in his work Beyond Good and Evil from years ago, especially the references to staring into abyss and having the abyss look back at you. Pride can prevent a person from recognizing what they are looking at when they are before the abyss. Is it the job of those who can do so to pull people away from the abyss? To reveal that the reality they are viewing is actually reflections and not the truth? If we are our brothers and sisters' keepers, then perhaps there are times when we need to be audacious and encourage or even insist that we step back from the edge. We take a deep breath and turn from that which pulls us down. There is so much in this world and in this life to celebrate. If we can only alter our perspectives a little and regain the empathy of shared loves and honor the empathy of our shared pains. If such a thing were realized, it would be analogous to humanity itself emerging from the cocoon we now exist within. At times, there is a painful transformation at work. We feel this pain deeply. We may yet emerge as something transformed and liberated in such a way that we may soar for the first time.